Hello everyone, and welcome back to The Whole Tooth, a podcast all about sharks, rays and their underwater habitat, brought to you by the Save Our Seas Foundation. I hope you're all well, wherever you may be in the world. I know we have listeners from all kinds of different places, and for me that is so cool to think about. So thank you so much for all the messages and the reviews that you send in. We really do appreciate you taking the time to do that. And if you're new here, welcome. I'm your host Isla, and every episode I sit down with experts in marine science, conservation and storytelling to talk about sharks and the oceans. Please feel free to get in touch. Let us know if you have any questions you want us to answer, any topics you want us to cover, or just tell us where you're listening from, or even what you're doing while you're listening. We've had people write in who listen while they're doing lab work, while they're painting, or even walking the dog. So whatever you're doing, I'm happy to provide some company and a little bit of nerdiness to your day. This week's episode was actually recorded a few weeks ago at Wildscreen Film Festival in Bristol, which is in the southwest of the UK. Wildscreen is an international community that supports and brings together natural history storytellers from across the world, and the festival is a celebration of natural history storytelling, bringing together filmmakers, photographers, presenters, and lots of other creative professionals. This year, Save Our Seas was one of the principal sponsors, funding a headline talk by the guest of today's episode, Bertie Gregory, a panel session on telling stories about sharks without sensationalism, and the Impact Award, which recognised films that also deliver a tangible impact for conservation, like policy or behaviour change. It was really cool to attend the full festival because storytelling is such a key part to science and conservation, because that's what engages a wider audience with the issues facing the natural world and empowers people to do something about it. And my guest today knows a thing or two about that. Bertie Gregory is an award-winning filmmaker and wildlife cameraman who has worked on landmark BBC natural history series including Frozen Planet and 7 Worlds, 1 Planet. He actually won a BAFTA for his work on this and is one of the youngest ever winners for cinematography. He has also produced and presented several series for National Geographic, including Wildlife and The Big Freeze. Now, you might have seen his face around a fair bit recently because he has just released his latest series for Disney+, Epic Adventures with Bertie Gregory. It follows Bertie around the world as he goes in search of some pretty extraordinary wildlife spectacles and takes you along with him through the challenges of filming nature in some of the most remote corners of the world. In this episode, we talk about filming epic adventures, how to keep your cool when you're in the middle of some pretty insane wildlife experiences, and how to tell stories about some of the issues facing the natural world with hope and optimism. Now, as you know, this is a shark podcast, so we do spend some time talking about Shark Island, an episode focused on filming shark aggregations in the Cocos Islands, which kind of sounds like a fictional place, to be honest. A pirate island surrounded by sharks, but I'll let Bertie tell you about that. He tells it much better than I do. We discussed his interactions with sharks in the episode, including scalloped hammerheads and tiger sharks, and how to film sharks safely and responsibly. Epic Adventures is now available on Disney+, and I would highly recommend watching the full series. It, of course, doesn't just feature sharks, but also whales in Antarctica, lions and crowned eagles in Africa, and dolphins in the high seas, so there's a little something for everyone. And if Disney isn't accessible to you, Bertie has so much content on YouTube as well, so go and check that out. This was a really fun chat, made even better by the fact that we could do it in person. Because we are at the festival, there is a little bit of background noise, but don't worry, you can still hear us loud and clear. Bertie has some pretty insane stories to tell about his many adventures, and also some great advice for any of you looking to make some films of your own. So I'll stop nattering on and let's dive in to our episode. Hello, Bertie Gregory, and welcome to the Whole Tooth podcast.
Thanks very much. Happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm just putting this out there. I feel really weird because this is not our usual setting to meet each other. Every single time we've met each other, we're on a boat or in a wetsuit, and I feel completely out of my natural habitat.
In the middle of a busy, noisy city, but said nizzy, a nizzy city, a noisy, busy city. There we go.
It. Yeah, I can't get used to it. It's like actually being what I imagine people feel like when they go into the wild.
Yeah, totally. Well, fear is all relative, right? It's what you're used to. And it's like on Epic Adventures in the Antarctica episode when I got in the water with the big leopard seal. That looks, I think, to many people like it was very intimidating and scary.
Yeah.
And sure, it's a big, powerful animal and certainly intimidating, but I found that a lot less scary than, walking down a busy street surrounded by loads of crazy people. It's all relative.
It is, yeah. That leopard seal scene is insane, by the way. It's definitely like squeaky bum time for sure. Like, is it really interested in you? Like, it's not...
I mean, like many predators, they're an ambush predator, right? So if it actually wanted to hunt you, you'd know nothing about it. It would come out of your blind spot and it would all be over very quickly. That's what they do when they're hunting penguins. Anytime that you can see one of them, it means their primary goal is not to hunt you because they're an ambush predator. Now, of course, it's still a big, dangerous animal, and it's curious, right? It's trying to figure out what you are. And, just like with sharks, they don't have hands. So if they want to figure out what a new object is, they bite it. And fortunately, with a leopard seal, when it bites you, its teeth aren't super sharp. It's a very powerful jaw, but its teeth aren't super sharp. And so, they kind of mouth you, which is intimidating, but it's not trying to kill you. The problem that sharks have is that when they're trying to do a curiosity bite, figure out what something is, a test bite, they've got very sharp teeth and your leg comes off. That's a problem for the person whose leg has come off, obviously. It's terrible. But also a problem for the shark because, they're getting really terrible publicity for a test.
That's it. Yeah, you've brought up sharks like literally in the face.
So that was good. That was a good segue, wasn't it?
Which podcast you're on. But yeah, so we like to start our podcast and end our podcast with the same question for every guest, and you're no different. But we usually ask this to scientists, and they struggle with this question. So I don't know how you're going to answer it. But it is, what is your most memorable experience in the ocean?
That's pretty easy. I've been fortunate enough to have some very cool experiences in the ocean. Usually I have like one or two amazing ones a year, but Epic Adventures, because we're going on Epic Adventures, there's just been loads and it's been crazy. But certainly in the Antarctica episode, we went in search of these kind of mystical fin whale gatherings. So these gatherings of these massive whales, second largest animal on Earth, only a little shorter than the blue whale. And we ended up finding the biggest gathering ever filmed. There were 300 fin whales altogether. Yeah. And it wasn't just fin whales, there was a couple humpbacks in there was a southern right whale, there were thousands of penguins and tens of thousands of flying birds, things like Cape petrels and wandering albatross, black-headed albatross, black-browed albatross, grey-headed albatross, just like, and Antarctic fur seals, all in this massive feeding party. And we filmed that from the air with a drone and from water level with a gyro-stabilized camera. But then, you can't film a whale spectacle without filming what's going on underwater. So we got underwater. And when we first got in the water, there are very strict laws on how you approach species in Antarctica, especially the whales. And so you kind of have to let stuff come to you. You can't go to it. So we kind of set up on the edge of the gathering. We dropped in. I was with a camera person called Dan Beecham, and we went down to about 10, 15 meters. And we were basically back to back because like the viz wasn't brilliant. It's probably 15 meter visibility, and the whales can be 27 meters long. So we're back to back, like a scene out of a Bad Boys movie, just waiting for like the baddies to come out the murk. And what was amazing was that before we saw any whales, we saw the krill, which were very cool. They looked like little Pixar characters floating around. But underneath us were, I was going to say hundreds, but no, thousands of Antarctic rock cod, which is a species of fish that you don't see because people don't dive in Antarctica really where they live.
Yeah, sure.
And they're about I don't know, a foot long, some of them bigger, quite chunky. And what was extraordinary was the number of them. Every time we got in to film the whales, there was just a carpet of them underneath us.
Amazing.
And they're typically a pretty benthic species. And here they were at the surface in 300 metres of water, feeding on the krill that the whales were feeding on. Like, they must hear the whales calling, I guess, or the noise, or they have some way of detecting that the krill
smelling the krill
are aggregating at the surface, and they're coming up 300 meters off the bottom and smashing the krill at the surface, and it was like being on an alien planet, and that was before we'd even seen a whale. So we're under the water, and there's just these fish everywhere, and we dropped down to see them. We were probably at 20 meters to see them, and then they would kind of go in these waves. They'd like disappear and then come up out the gloom. And then a bunch of chinstrap penguins zoomed past, all grabbing the krill as they went past. I'm like, this is ridiculous. And then, this monster fin whale just came out the gloom. And that was the beginning. That just in itself was the most extraordinary thing I've seen underwater. But that was just the start. Then we started to get passes of, 4, even 5 whales at a time. The humpback whales came over to have a look at us. It was just like mind explosion.
That's crazy. And like, one of the things that I love about Epic Adventures is that we get to see your reaction to that, because one of the things I've always wondered when I watch things like Frozen Planet and Blue Planet is like the people who are in the water filming that.
What does that feel like?
Like how do you keep your cool? Because you've been on the boat with me, you know that I really struggle to keep my cool in those kind of situations. I don't even know what I would do, and I think as a person watching that from home, it's like really cool to, like you said earlier, like you've just done a talk for us as well, but like you wanted people to experience that and feel what it was like to sort of be in the water with you at that point.
Yeah, I guess the thing I have going for me in those kinds of situations is, I film with lots of different camera people, and everyone has a different reaction. Some don't get excited, they're really focused on the job, and actually that means that they're quite boring to film because because they're not getting excited about it. And then at the other end of the spectrum, some people get very, very excited and flustered, and then they're not actually very good at they're freaking out, and they're not actually very good at filming the thing. Whereas I'm fortunate in that I'm kind of in the middle ground, in that I feel like I'm quite expressive, but I'm quite good at compartmentalizing things. Although I'm expressive with how excited I am, I'm good at just focusing and getting in the zone. But that said, you'll see in the show, in some of the episodes, there are times, especially when the action's really nuts, that I'm very quiet and not excited. And it's because I'm concentrating so hard on trying to capture the thing. And actually, people often ask, that must have been amazing to see. And really, in the case of underwater, that's true, because generally everything's very close. But often with the drone, I'm 500 meters away from the action, so it's actually quite disconnecting. And so actually, at the time, it's not that much of a wildlife experience, because I'm seeing what you're seeing, but through a monitor, and often the signal's a bit rubbish, so it's just like a crackly screen. And the more crazy the wildlife encounter, the more stressful it is to do justice to it. And so a lot of it is type 2 fun. Type 1 fun is fun at the time, type 2 fun is fun afterwards. So I'd say that.
Yeah, and like as a diver as well, like one of the things I just can't imagine, like you've got so much going on when you're diving, because not only are you're using a rebreather, and you're obviously having to do all the normal things that we have to do, which is like navigate currents and try not to whack into coral and all that kind of stuff, but you're also filming, and then for this you've also got, for some of
presenting, you've
got the face mask on.
It's a whole nother diving. You got to learn to dive again, really. Like there's a lot going on safety wise as well, because you can get CO2 pockets, you got to flush the mask, all that stuff. I mean that's task loading, right? And that can be potentially dangerous. And I think the key thing is that you get good at all the things independently. So when you put them all together, it's not a big deal. And because if you're concentrating on the technology that you're using, you're not concentrating on the animals. I mean, again, the leopard seal is a good example. Filming, using that face mask, very cold Antarctic waters, and there's a leopard seal. That's 5 things going on at once. And if you were concentrated, I've dived in cold conditions before, so I'm used to that, get rid of that. I've used a face mask a lot before, get rid of that. I filmed a lot, so you can get rid of that. And so really it means that you focused on the leopard seal and the talking. Well, the talking, it's all about preparation, knowing about the animal and thinking about the types of things you might want to say, so that the only thing really you have to think about, because you can go into autopilot for all of that, is what's the leopard seal doing. Because if you weren't comfortable on the other 4 things, you wouldn't be focused on the leopard seal. And that's when bad things happen, because although that animal is not trying to eat you, it's still a big, powerful predator, and it's not fair on it for you to be focused on something else. Because they're a predator, they're totally aware of what you're doing. In the show, we show that they sneak up behind you the whole time, and they know if you're distracted. Like, they know if you're focused on something else, and that is when they'll... You know the bit when it comes around the side of my camera and bumps me on the shoulder?
Like a stealth
right. So the reason that it did that was the whole time I was following it with the camera, right?
Yeah.
Always the camera was between me and it. And it was curious in the camera. But you could tell, like, it wants to know what all of you is. And the one time that I was like, I wonder what happens if I don't follow it with the camera. And I let it go past. And because I just wanted to look at it rather than looking at it on a camera. And I was following it, and I just lower the camera, and I look at it just with my eyes, and immediately you can see in the show, it goes, camera's not in the way anymore, what are you? And it just went boop on the shoulder, and it was like, whoa, okay, that was a real shock.
Yeah, proper stealth boop.
A stealth boop, is that the technical term? I like it, I'm going to use that,
You can almost see it's like, I'm gonna have fun with this guy,
right?
And it doesn't look menacing. It doesn't look malicious at all.
I mean, it could have done that with an open mouth, and then
well,
be a different
you see that
story.
on your camera. Like, it's got its mouth open on your camera, and you can see all the teeth and stuff.
Yeah. Now I'm sure after it had booped me there, it was getting more and more excited, and more. I mean, excited's a human term, but more and more curious and fired up. It was. When we first got in, it's interesting how leopard seals, I've now dived with quite a few of them. They're all different personalities, and that one is actually the best leopard seal for filming that I've ever dived with, in that it's curious enough that it comes close enough to film it, but it doesn't want to. Some of the leopard seals you get in with, and they just want to be all up in you, and you can't actually film them because they're just all over you. But that one, it was getting more and more fired up, and after it booped, it then got a bit more excited, and that was why me and Dan went, it's time to get out. Not because it was going to eat us, but just because if it then started doing that with its mouth open, you just don't want to create the situation where it does something that hurts us, because that's just bad publicity for leopard seals.
It's like the same with any wildlife, really. Like, it's really difficult, I imagine, especially as a filmmaker, because you want to get that balance right between... You're saying that these species are, they're not out to get you. Like, a lot of people think you're just going to drop in the water with, like, a shark or something, and it's like, ooh, humans here, I'm going to eat that straight away.
Right.
But also, they are still wild animals, and you need to sort of manage that.
But also with a bold, that animal leopard seals run on curiosity and checking out new things. That's how they survive. And imagine if we saw an alien in the street for the first time, we'd probably want to go and figure out what it was, and I mean, if you didn't have hands, we want to maybe feel what it was like. Now I'm talking about touching up aliens. That's weird.
Image of like you running up to someone and just like smacking it with your fist.
Right. Show me a camera. But that leopard seal probably never seen it. No, certainly had never seen a human underwater in its life, and so what is going through its head, and you've got to. It's your responsibility to manage that. And actually, the best stuff that Dan filmed, which is in the show, was on a different dive. He got to we got to that point where it stopped paying attention into us and started doing its thing, and he got these amazing shots of it dancing around, going after the chinstrap penguins, and that's what you want to get to, is get through the curiosity stage, and then it's like, okay, you're boring, I don't want to play with you anymore, I'm going to go back to doing my day job of chasing penguins around.
We've just talked about, like, you see everything in epic adventures. So you've also got, the epic sort of wildlife scenes that you get in the Blue Chip series, but you also get to see you and your team behind the scenes, what it's like to film, like the process of it. And so, like, why did you go down that direction as opposed to, things like Blue Planet, and where you kind of only really see the end product, if that makes sense.
So I guess lucky enough to film on those types of series. Still do now, and they are amazing because the goal, I mean, like Epic Adventures, is to film the wildlife at the very highest level, and you just get so much time. You work with great people, amazing equipment, and so why did I go down the route of, I guess, Epic Adventures? I would say it's not a one or the other. I can still do both. But currently, most of my time is Epic Adventures because the it's very busy. And I think, when I was working on those big blue chip series, the Attenborough series, whenever my friends and family that weren't necessarily super interested in wildlife would see the show, the bit that they'd react to most was always the last 10 minutes. It was always the bit when they see, how you did it and what went into it. And I think there's a few reasons to why that's so engaging. One is that people are curious about how things get made, but I think also it provides a really good sense of scale. Like, I could tell you that a fin whale was 27 meters long, but actually I don't know any objects that are 27 meters long. It's like two buses, or it's like a weird concept where, because we are 2 meters long as humans maximum, unless you're really tall. And so I think the moment you see a person in the shot, suddenly it's like, they're really, really big. I get that. So there's the sense of scale, and I think also when you see a wildlife sequence, sometimes it can be quite disconnecting. Like, most people have never been to the Arctic and seen a polar bear, but the moment you see a person, the polar bear, you're like, okay, cool, I've got an idea of how big things are. There's context. There's all those things, but then the other things that it allows us to do is we've just got way more time within the episode to unpack a behavioral sequence, so we can go way more in depth into the biology of what's going on, and most importantly, we can talk about the bigger environmental picture, because those always involve people, and blue chip, you can't really have people on screen, whereas we can. So I guess that's why I'm so passionate about doing Epic Adventures, because we get to shine a light on all those things as well as the big behavior, and I think they're just different tactics, I guess, and the thing that I love as a presenter is that you get a lot of editorial input. Usually when I'm filming on things like Seven Worlds or Frozen Planet 2, you're hired on, you go on the shoot, it's great, and then you hand over the footage at the end, and you're done. Whereas this project, I'm in it from beginning to end, which is a great learning experience, but also having that editorial input is really cool. Yeah,
really cool. And because it must be so good to watch it back and think I had so much of a part in that as well, and kind of molding the story as well as
totally. And I guess there's the rewarding aspects of it, but also the learning aspects. Like, when you see something, when you shoot something, and then you go into the edit, and you see it in the edit, and you see the editor go, I wish I had that shot, and you go, I never would have thought to film something from that angle, or let the animal leave frame in that way, or enter frame in that way, or getting that perspective, and it makes you a better camera person, because next time you're not just shooting something to cover it, you're shooting something for the editor. That's what I'm thinking about when I'm underwater or topside or wherever, is okay, I've got that shot, it's long enough, I've got the animal entering frame, let's get around the other side and get the other perspective, and you're building a sequence in your brain, which I think, unless you've sat in loads of edits and seen what works and what doesn't work, you're only going to be getting secondhand information from the director as to how to do that. Yeah,
it's really interesting. It's changing the way that you're looking at things, even when you're
shooting backwards.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
And another aspect that you see in Epic Adventures is also not just the film crew, but the scientists as well that you're working with, and the local knowledge too. That's a really important part of it that a lot of people don't get to see.
It's everything.
As a scientist who has been involved in productions and stuff, you're not often not part of it, which is fine, but can you talk a little bit about why it was important to you to feature those scientists? I mean, one of them is actually one of our project leaders, Randall, so he works for Save Our Seas as well, which is really awesome to see that. But yeah, why was it important to you to feature those?
Well, there's a few reasons. Firstly, I think science is just really important, full stop, for reasons that we could talk about forever. So getting that involved is really good. Also, the science is usually the way that the environmental issue is best framed because it's the evidence that the animal is in trouble and the evidence that is required to save that animal. So there's that. I think it's also an amazing way to shine a light on local voices because, as a white man filming wildlife, there's a lot of white men filming wildlife. This project allows us to shine a light on people all around the world and get them to tell us about their animals rather than us just parachuting in there, blocking them out and making it all about the animals. So that's a really cool thing that we're able to do. I mean, in the case of Randall, he's awesome with the hammerheads off of Costa Rica, and getting his perspective. And I learned a lot about how to get close to the sharks from him. So it's not just on screen, it's practical things to film these animals. And as you say, they're so important, and often the camera people, the presenter, get way too much credit. We're often put in the right place, and we just hit the record button and keep it in focus. So being able to feature those people is really cool.
There's a lot of way that you guys can help us as well as scientists, because Track and Ocean Giants, that's become a scientific paper, right?
Yeah, I mean, without our boat and budget, you could not get scientists there that year, and especially on that type of vessel. That's not a vessel that scientists generally in Antarctica are working on the big vessels, which are great for some things, but they're limiting in terms of being maneuverable and quick and reactive, especially with the whale gathering. And so being able to have Lee on the boat is great, and it works both ways. Both parties are winning, and we've worked with Lee again as well on season 2. So it's very cool.
One thing that helps us loads, especially if we're working with animals in the water, is just having the drones up. So when you're working with sharks, and you're looking for them, it's so much easier to be like, oh, the drone's there, it must be over the shark, and just head that way, rather than try and figure out where the fin is when there's waves and things. This is a shark podcast, so there is a little bit. I mean, there'll be links in the show notes as to how people can find the series and how they can watch it and everything. So I would highly encourage everybody to watch the full thing. But I do have some questions, obviously, about Shark Island specifically, which is an amazing episode. Because one of the feature groups of animals of that episode is the sharks, specifically the scalloped hammerhead, but there is a couple of different species that make an appearance as well. So if you can indulge me a little bit for the shark thing, can you tell our listeners a little bit about that episode?
Yeah, so there's an island off of Costa Rica. It's about 350 miles off the mainland, and it's called Cocos. And if you've ever seen the Jurassic Park films, Isla Nublar, which is in Jurassic Park, it was actually filmed in Hawaii, that film, but it was based off of, if you look geographically on the map of where it is, it's basically where Cocos Island is. And it's the closest thing to Jurassic Park I think I've seen. If you imagine very, very deep water, and then all of a sudden erupting, quite literally, because it's an ancient volcano that went off about 2 million years ago, I think. There's this big mountain that comes up out the water, and it's covered in jungle, just most of it impenetrable jungle, and it has loads of waterfalls that it's just magical. And instead of having pterodactyls like in Jurassic Park, it has big frigate birds that look just like mini pterodactyls. And it's this amazing shark hotspot. It's got to be one of the top places in the world to see sharks. Specifically, it's where scalloped hammerheads still gather in large numbers, not nearly as big a numbers as they used to, and we can go into that.
We will.
Yeah, I'm sure we will. And so that was really the main goal, was to try and film, a big gathering of scalloped hammerheads, along with the other sharks that are there. And I think what's really cool about the island is not only is it an amazing piece of biology and it looks great, but it's got so much cool history because of its remoteness and the fact that it's got loads of fresh water on it, which is actually quite rare for remote islands. It was perfect for pirates. So pirates used to use it as a stop-off and dump all their treasure there. So it's thought that one of the biggest heists ever, the Treasure of Lima, is buried on Cocos, and no one's found it. It's like $100 million.
Did you try?
No, because it's not allowed anymore. But I may have had an extra couple drone flights that I didn't need to have. I feel like if it was easy to find that and it was there, someone would have found it, but maybe not. So yeah, I mean, it's like a pirate island surrounded by sharks with jungle all over it. It's like something out of a fairy tale or
storybook or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that is. It looks incredible.
It looks like a movie set that's been designed.
It does.
And actually, to come up from a dive where you've seen loads of sharks, normally, often your dive locations are not necessarily close to land, and you get in the boat and that's it. But to surface from seeing hammerhead sharks and then to see a giant jungle covered island with a waterfall pouring into the sea, you're like, where am I? How is this a real thing?
I mean, you definitely hit the nail on the head with the title of the show. Like, it is, like, everything in it is really epic, especially there's only a couple of words that you can use to describe it. Like, it's very, very cool. But as someone that works like in shark science and conservation, and like the whole team have said this before, is that it's really awesome to see an episode that the sharks aren't the scary thing in that episode. So the scary thing, I think, is the fact that it's struggle to find them and film them close up, and also the currents there are pretty gnarly, right?
Yeah, and actually what's annoying about currents is that it's a bit like bad weather in a boat. It's very hard to show, and so they make you look totally incompetent because your shots are wobbly and you're flying all over the place, but actually they never look that bad. And I think the only shot that kind of does justice to it is you see my bubbles drift sideways when I breathe out rather than going up. But even still, it's so hard to do that justice. It's so annoying. It's so frustrating when I remember there's a dive site there called Alcyon, which is world famous. It's a seamount. We were sat about 30 meters on the rebreathers, and there was an absolutely pumping current going over the top of this seamount. So it's just a big mountain that comes up out the deep. I think it comes from 2,000 meters or 1,000 meters up to 26 meters, I think, is the top of the tip. And we were at about 30, 35, and we sat there, and there's just sharks everywhere, and you're trying to film, and you can't hold the shot still because you want to put one hand down to steady yourself, but you need two hands on the camera. And I remember one time the current kind of took me, and I sort of was just on my back because I held the shot to the very last minute rather than catching myself, and was just literally on my back with my fins and the camera in my hand. And I remember looking up at Hugh, who I was diving with, and he just looked at me shaking his head like, you amateur.
Kind of like a little trainee.
Yeah, I'm like, I promise I'm good at this.
But yeah, I mean, like, as a lot of our listeners will be divers, so like when they see that scene, they'll be able to understand. But yeah,
I hope so. It's a tough place to dive. Yeah,
and there's like real safety concerns as well, because if you get pulled out and you're too far away from the boat and the boat can't see you, it can't pick you up.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and I think the next land is the Philippines. So yeah, it's quite a long way.
Holiday. That's
quite a long way to drift. It's big pumping current, and also especially at somewhere like Alcyon, it's offshore. It's not right next to the island. Unfortunately, there's actually a rope there on there's like a buoy that goes to the surface that you can follow the line up. But if you leave the reef at 26 meters. You've got to take time to go up because of all of the safety stuff with diving, and so if you're not there if you're not paying attention to where you are and the viz is bad, so you can't see what's below you, by the time you actually get to the surface, you could be a very, very long way from where the boat thinks you are. And so we take the safety really seriously, and we all carry these little things called Nautilus lifelines. It's like a little locator beacon. If you get to the surface and you're in trouble, you press a button and it sends a ping to the boat as to where you are. But that's if it works. But it's
but the sharks aren't the scary thing, which is great. And you talk about overfishing right from the beginning of the episode, which biggest threat facing sharks, especially scalloped hammerheads, critically endangered species. And you even see one with a hook.
We saw loads of sharks with hooks, and you think those are actually the lucky ones. that got caught and managed to break off.
Yeah, but do you think that, so obviously there's still a lot of tropes used when sharks are featured, like even, that's annoying, even in like natural history film, it's changing a lot now, but do you think there's still, the narrative around sharks needs to change kind of in storytelling, and if so, like what narrative do you think it needs to be?
I think that there's a big range, right? And scalloped hammerheads are different. They're not gonna try and munch you. But we also have to recognise that they are big, powerful predators. Yeah. And those tiger sharks there have killed people in the past. So we're not going to turn around and go, oh, it's very noisy in a city. They have. So we can't turn around and go, oh, this is all fine. Seeing a tiger shark in poor visibility when it's hunting things at the surface is intimidating, and I don't think we should shy away from that, because that's engaging and gripping and the truth. I think what isn't right to do is to say that shark is out to get us. It's not trying to eat people. People taste rubbish, I imagine. So I think it's, in the show, we're lucky in that we can unpack the nuance of it, because it's not black and white.
Exactly.
And so we can say that, those sharks are hunting birds at the surface that are falling off of that cliff. And so, if you're at the surface, you need to be really careful. Yeah. And actually one scene that we took out the film because I felt we didn't have time to explain the nuance of it, was so we have a SMB, surface marker buoy, that we would deploy every time we were on our safety stop, so coming up from the dive, and it would mark our position for the boat to come pick us up. And Cristiano, one of the amazing guides, experts that we had there, on the end of one of our dives, sent up his surface marker buoy, and a tiger shark, huge female, came flying up out the deep, and she smashed into it, and she went, shredded it, and swam off. The nuance of that is that it was a perfect demonstration of what that shark is trying to do. It's patrolling that cliff, waiting for baby chicks, frigate bird chicks and booby chicks to fall out their nests onto the surface, and it rockets up out the deep before that chick can take off, if it can take off, and hit it. So it saw this thing fly up, hit the surface and splash, which is what it does when you inflate them, and it went, came up and it smashed it. Now, there wasn't time in the film to really explain exactly what happened, and so it would be all too easy to paint that as a shark attack. And we felt that actually that wasn't going to do the shark or the narrative any favours, so why not just leave it out and focus on what the sharks are doing. And so I think it's important with sharks what's the story around them, but what you don't put in the film is just as important as what you put in the film, because it's nuanced. It's not, I didn't explain that badly, but yeah.
No, it's perfect, because I'm glad you brought up the tiger sharks. I was going to ask about that element, because it's a really good example of how to do that, is how to show the nuance, because you talk about the fact that you've got to consider them when you're going in the water. You've got to manage your behaviour to minimise the chance that they're going to mistake you for something else.
Right, we're not going to pretend that they're not potentially dangerous, because they are. But the point is that they're not trying to hunt people. It's a case of mistaken identity, and it's our responsibility, not theirs, to not put ourselves in a situation where they can mistake us.
Yeah, exactly. And species that is trying to hunt the other is humans trying to hunt sharks, and you talk about that. You talk about the extent of overfishing and everything, and you do that throughout the series. You talk about a lot of big complex issues that are affecting the natural world, but it's overall the series is really positive, and there's a lot of messages of hope, especially in the first episode as well. But you and I, like, we work in the wild, you more so than me, you're out there most of the time, and how we're obviously seeing change in real time. Like, it's happening really fast now. So how does it feel, like, as a filmmaker, like, experiencing that while you're actually out in the field?
I mean, getting really dark for a second. I mean, the sharks are, we've been lucky that there's lots of positive, good news stories in the series, like the whales coming back. But in the case of the hammerhead sharks, I remember after we saw the gathering of hammerheads, and that was one of the craziest things I've seen. It's probably 100 hammerheads all together.
So
big
cool.
big wall of hammerheads. I got out being like, that was just crazy. And Cristiano, the guy that I just mentioned with the SMB that got chomped, he said, I don't want to, make this too negative because what you've seen is amazing, but I'd just like to show you some pictures. And it was a shame we didn't figure out a way of getting this in the show. Again, it's nuanced and challenging, but he brought his iPad over with a bunch of pictures that he took like 15, 20 years ago from exactly the same dive site. And instead of there being 100 hammerheads in frame, there were hundreds, maybe even 1,000 in the frame. And it was, could recognise the reef. It was the same bit we were sat on. And what I think was most moving about that was it was just so clear. Like, that was before, this is now. And then it was like, well, what's this place going to be like in 20 years? Now, if we keep going the way we're going, there's going to be next to nothing there. And that's really depressing and sad. So it was almost more moving because it was like, we're seeing something that I'm going to be telling stories about, not being able to go see it again or, say, oh, go see this thing. Like, it's going to be a thing that we tell stories about. And that's really sad. It
must be, I mean, I feel it on a much smaller scale than you, but like when you see change like that happening, like obviously I work with sharks, it is very depressing, but also you can't make a whole series like that because then people are going to leave feeling a bit like...
No, well, you've got to focus on the positivity, and the positives are there's people like Randall, who's been flying the flag for a long time. He's amazing, how he keeps going, and he makes wins. He advocates for changes in fishing practices. He is, they're setting up, these marine corridors. Currently, I think they set them up in the wrong place. So he's working now to move them. And that is all things that are positive, and we should celebrate because that is a way to solve the issue. But yeah, as I said, I should say that the series doesn't focus on the doom and the gloom.
It doesn't.
It makes people aware of it, and I think it's really important to focus on the positives. And what is really exciting is that there are lots of places around the world where there's examples of how actually the good news is that although we've trashed the natural world in loads of places, the good news is that, well, I guess I'm going to complicate this. Wouldn't it be really awful if, humans have trashed the natural world and it took ages for it to come back everywhere, or it was really hard to make it come back? It's not. Wildlife's really good at fixing itself if you give it the chance, and that's really exciting. You give it the chance and it'll come back. It would be a real problem if it didn't. And so yeah, I mean, in the case of the fin whales in Antarctica, that's one of the few examples, and I say this at the end of the episode, it's one of the few examples of looking at something. Everywhere I go, the Cristiano, the guide, goes, oh yeah, what you've seen is amazing, but you should have seen what it was like 20 years ago. Well, in Antarctica, if you went to that place 20 years ago, that didn't happen.
Yeah, it's the other way around.
It's the other way around.
Yeah.
And how cool would that be if we could go to way more places around the world, having turned it around? And it's totally doable.
But that's something that the series does really well. Like, you don't leave it feeling sad, or like you feel really uplifted and positive, and you've learned a lot through the environmental messages and everything. But like, I think your enthusiasm is so infectious, and like all the people that you work with as well that you see in the series, like, so you do leave it feeling, very positive. And I get the sense that was definitely like a deliberate decision for that to be the whole mood of the series.
I mean, deliberate decision implies that it wasn't, and there were options to do it other ways. Like, I'm not a doom and gloom person. That got pretty dark with the sharks. But
deep.
No. Ooh, good pun. I like it. Well done. So I think it is important to focus on the good stuff, because that's exciting and empowering, and that's I think what drives people to get up out of bed and do stuff, is that you can make a difference.
this is an advice question because we are at Wildscreen, but you said before that you often get asked how to start as a wildlife filmmaker, and obviously there isn't a specific route in, so that's quite a hard question to answer. So I thought I'd make it a little bit more specific. But from quite early on in your career, you've sort of pitched shows before. Do you have any advice for anyone sitting at home who has like an idea, seed of an idea in their head, or they're kind of ready to sort of go into that, who's wanting to pitch it to like a network or a funder who's kind of like at that stage? Because I think that's the hard bit.
So the most important thing is that if you're pitching an idea, is it just a pitch? Is it just an idea? Or have you already done it? Because if you've already done it, then it's not, you're asking someone to basically roll the dice on you, right?
Yeah.
And if you're making a bet, I'm not a gambling person, but from what I understand, if you're making a bet, you want to bet on something that you think is going to win.
Yeah.
And so the more evidence you can provide that shows that what they're doing is not a gamble, it's the better. And so to just say, I've got this great idea, I can do this, and this, what do you think? It's like, well, why would they say yes to that if it's just an idea? Like, that's crazy. Now, of course, there's like nuance to this. So if you want to do something, in the deep sea, you're going to need a submarine and loads of cash. You can't just go do that to prove that it's doable. Yeah. But it's more proof of concept. Think outside the box. What are things you can do? So, for example, if you've decided that you want to make a show about lions, and not everyone lives next door to lions, so you need funding and resources to go do that. Well, you don't have to make a thing about lions, but if you live down the road from some deer or a badger or a fox, go make a show about that. Everyone has a camera on their phone, or any type of camera equipment. Everyone has a broadcasting platform that is free, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, whatever. Go out and do it, and then show what you've done. Like, why should the commissioner or the person you're pitching to need to go and do loads of work or figure out if your idea is the thing or not? Show them what you've already done. Like, I often get asked, how do I be a wildlife camera person? Oh no, they say, can we work together? And I go, yeah, great, like, show me what you've done. Oh, I haven't filmed any wildlife yet. It's like, why not? Like, everyone has a camera in their pocket. We live in this amazing age where there's wildlife you can go see. Even if you live in a city, sure, cities aren't great places for most species, but Bristol here, 200 metres from this room is the peregrine falcon, the fastest animal on earth. Like, go film that. Like, go do things. Don't wait for someone to hand you an opportunity, because then it's much easier for someone to hand you an opportunity if they know, wow, this person's got drive and work ethic and thinks outside the box. This is no longer a real big gamble. This is gonna do it. So that would be the big thing. Is yes, you need the backing and mentorship of people at some point, but there are so many things you can do. Don't sit around waiting for someone to hand you a golden ticket, because it's just not going to happen.
Yeah. Because if you can be, I would argue, if you can be creative and make something interesting to do with city wildlife,
way more impressive.
Yeah, that whoever you're trying to show it to is going to be like, okay, like they actually know what they're doing.
I remember last Wildscreen, or maybe it was a Jackson, someone showed me they said, can I show you this film I've been working on? And I was like, here we go, it's going to be, I don't know, something about the lions they saw on holiday or something. And it was a film all about a pigeon that nested on this person's windowsill, and it was amazing. And I was like, wow, you have made that engaging, so you're going to find actually, filming other things really straightforward. I have this thing called the pigeon test. So when we're figuring out if a story is good or not, if a behaviour is good, you have to think, okay, does this story pass the pigeon test? If you were to swap the animal that you want to film for a pigeon, would it still be interesting?
That's a very good test.
Because if it's just, lots of people, sharks is a great example. There are loads of shark shows that just film sharks swimming. Yeah. So if you swapped it, a pigeon swimming, that's a bad example because a pigeon swimming would be quite cool.
That'd be brilliant.
But a pigeon, if it's just a pigeon walking along, would you watch it?
Probably not.
Probably not. Well,
Yeah.
okay, but let's break this down. In the case of the shark episode, big gathering of pigeons, big gathering of hammerhead sharks, suddenly I'm more interested. What happens if it's really hard to get close to the pigeons? Suddenly it starts to get more interesting.
What if a pigeon gives you a stealth boop?
Exactly, that would be pretty terrifying. Pigeon that big, whoa.
It would be freaky.
Yeah, or the pigeons are, hunting near the surface, waiting for birds to fall out of their nest. Suddenly it's a good gauge. It's not a hard and fast rule because you can also rely on the majesty of an animal that's very rare and hard to film. But
it's a good test.
Certainly with animal behaviour, pigeon test.
Absolutely. So there you go. There's some inside tips. Do the pigeon test.
Go out and do it and pigeon test.
No, that was brilliant. But if I do have one final question for you, and it's a really, really super serious one.
Oh dear.
I'm going to go very deep. If you could be any species of shark, ray, or skate in the world, what would you be and why?
Oh wow, that's a question.
Everyone hates this one.
One species. Okay, so I would be something that probably can't get eaten easily because living in fear would be quite, if I'm a human pretending to be a shark here. So I don't think I'd be something small that gets eaten lots.
Okay.
Would I be a whale shark? I feel like swimming around the oceans with your mouth open, filter feeding might be a bit dull. Maybe I'd be a basking shark because...
You're going to go basking shark over whale shark?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Definitely.
What's your reason?
Well, actually, whale sharks, just kind of warmer water. That sounds quite
That's
lovely.
what I was thinking.
Well, I think I'd be basking shark mainly because so little is known about me. I mean, very little is known about whale sharks, but so little is known about basking sharks. Mm-hmm. If I shut my mouth, I look like a great white.
This is true.
That's pretty cool.
You can freak people out.
Yeah, but without being actually a great white. Mm-hmm. So filter feeding, that'd be cool. And what else? I mean, where they hang out's cool. They've got these amazing migrations. And also, that new study that showed that they hold hands? They bump their little pec fins together. Yes. That sounds quite nice. Swimming around, holding hands with your friends. And imagine being a shark in one of those shark carousels. That sounds cool. And they can jump out of the water despite the fact that no one thinks they can. Some sharks, you're like, I back you to be able to, thresh a shark, you see it, you're like, you're more than capable of jumping out of the water. Whereas a basking shark, you're like, that's never going to happen. And it does.
It does. But did you see one breach when you were with us?
Yeah.
It's the most ungraceful thing.
I don't know.
It just flops over.
It's not about style points, it's about maximum height.
That is true. Anyway, I'm not going to keep you any longer because I know you have to run off and do all kinds of other exciting things, but thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us on the podcast. We very much appreciate it. And yeah, so exciting to see, because I've known you for 2 years now? So to actually see the end product come out is really cool, and it's been really successful, and I'm very happy for you. So
that's very kind. Well, good to chat, and if you want to watch the series, it's on Disney Plus. It's called Epic Adventures. Hope you enjoy it.
Cool. Thanks, Bertie.
Cheers.
This podcast was brought to you by the Save Our Seas Foundation. It was hosted and edited by me, Isla Hodgson. Our beautiful artwork is by Nicola Poulos, and the wonderful jingle that you can hear right now is by David Knight. An enormous thank you to Bertie for making time for us. He's a very busy guy at the moment, so we very much appreciated him taking the time to chat. As I said in the intro, Epic Adventures with Bertie Gregory is streaming now on Disney Plus. And a massive thank you to you at home for listening. As always, you can get in touch by emailing isla@saveourseas.com or via our social media. We are at Save Our Seas Foundation on Instagram and at Save Our Seas on Twitter. Alrighty, have a jawsome week, and we will see you next time.